Okay then, Team of the Week for our Week 4 of the Overwatch League 2021. And of course, this is the May Melee Finals, so it's going to be a little bit different. We've only got 4 teams to choose from, so I'm going to do it in a little bit of a different way to the way in which we do normal Team of the Weeks, because there's so many teams involved in a normal Team of the Weeks that you couldn't do it this way. It would make for a goodness knows how long video. This Team of the Week is going to be a tier list based Team of the Week. So we are going to rank every single player we have seen for each division, for each position, I should say, and then that will decide our team of the week. And it is going to be pretty obvious who I put in here because, you know, it's the way the knockouts work, right? And best team wins at the end of the day, and the best team normally has best players, so, you know, that's the kind of the hint of what's going on here. But we have to be fair about it. And when a team dominates Team of the Week, you know that team's done darn well. Anyway, let's start off with our main support. So we saw 4 main supports this weekend. That's obviously across all teams, so that's Nisha, Jexa, Slime, and Lige Gon. And they've had varying amount of success. However, I think the weakest main support we've seen this weekend is Nisha. I don't think a lot of people are going to argue too much with that. Nisha wasn't bad, don't get me wrong. We didn't see Yveltal, I don't believe. So, Nisha wasn't bad for the Chengdu Hunters, but again, it's been a rough tournament for the Chengdu Hunters when it comes to the Hawaii showdown, should we call it, or whatever. But it's been real rough for them, and therefore it's kind of worked out that none of their players have really stood out too much. And that's really unfortunate for a team that did so well getting to this point. And it does highlight some issues with them. I know Nisha back last weekend and the week before and stuff like that, he did get caught out sometimes, but wasn't too bad. But this time, he did look like he was having much less of an impact than our other main supports. In third, I'm putting Jexa now. That may seem a little low for a Dallas Fuel player considering what's happened this weekend, but I think Jexa is consistent, but not as pop-off, perhaps, as the other two. Because Slime is my second one here, and there is a reason that Slime is second. And both Slime and Lige Gon have made massive differences both to the Florida Mayhem and obviously the Shanghai Dragons this weekend. I remember notable plays from Slime, and I love his brain in which he gets stuck as Brigitte but shield bashes towards the Tracer and kills the Tracer with him. It may have been a lost fight, but if you're going to go down, you take your opponent with you. I really love plays like that. Also, the shield bash onto, I believe it was Fate, to get the 4k bomb for Gargoyle. That was completely set up by Slime because of the shield bash. It was no one else. It would not have been a 4k bomb if it wasn't for that shield bash. So again, it's plays like that that are really insane. And I believe Slime cancelled a pulse bomb with a shield bash as well on Brig. I can't be totally sure about that. But again, Slime has had a fantastic weekend. But I am giving the #1 spot to Lige Gon. The reason for that is Lige Gon's had a great impact on the Brig and on the Lucio, but Lige Gon has had a massive impact on the Mercy. Now that's not something you would necessarily expect, and it's an impact in different ways. I can think of 2 instances where Lige Gon has changed the course of fights with his Mercy play, and it's not just getting a clutch res. It's actually, so Hanamura, Lip dies. I think it's Lip that dies. He goes in for the res, but can't get it, but he pops his Valkyrie and kills the enemy Ashe. And it changes the course of a fight. It evens the fight and it allows Shanghai Dragons to claw their way back into it. And then on Gibraltar, we see him against, I believe, the Florida Mayhem. His Hitscan dies, I think. I think it's Lip that dies. He goes in, pistols his opponent, and then reses. It turns the entire fight around. So it's not just clutch reses, he's getting pistol kills that are making the world of difference. Incredibly clutch play from Lige Gon. And yes, Shanghai live and die by the Lige Gon at times. Sometimes he can be a little bit over aggressive, but he's balanced it well this weekend, and I think he deserves the spot over Slime. They are very close though. I think Lige Gon and Slime they were a little bit out in front of Jexa for me. But Jexa was quite a way out in front of Nisha. So then we come to our flex DPS. This is where we see 5 players because Chengdu Hunters fielded 2 different flex DPS. Faraway 1987, who's going to be my 5th place, and Monk, who's going to be my 4th place. Because Faraway, he was good but picked off a lot. Faraway was picked off a heck of a lot. And we didn't see much from Faraway apart from the Zenyatta. Then Monk. Monk is good, but again, similar case to Nisha. Couldn't keep up with the likes of Gangnam Jin, Izayaki, and Fielder, although they did not take on one of those, obviously. So it's kind of rough, right? Monk is good in the regular season, going up against teams he can compete with, but when it comes to going up against the best of the best, he tends to fall behind, and that's why he's taken up that place. Gangnam Jin is in 3rd because basically Gangnam Jin has been great, but he cannot live up to Izayaki and Fielder. Not right now. He was fairly close to Izayaki, but I think Izayaki got more value and was charging ults quicker than Gangnam Jin from what I could tell. So that's why Izayaki's getting it over Gangnam Jin. And then Izayaki is in 2nd behind Fielder. Simply because Fielder, Dallas have been playing slightly off meta. We've seen Fielder We've seen Fielder play the Moira, which I don't believe we've seen from any other support in this Melee tournament, especially the finals. And my goodness me, was Fielder getting so much value from the Moira, when you wouldn't expect Moira to get too much value. Getting great value from coalescences and just regular chipping in with kills and finishing off kills. Fielder was great at that. And then when he switches back to the Zenithal, mainly the Ana, he looks phenomenal. It looks like the Fielder we were promised when he was playing on 200 ping for the Paris Eternal last season. And then he kind of fell off a little bit, but now he's back, and he's back with a vengeance. And my goodness me, he's looking like one of the best flex supports in the league, if not the best. So Fielder is definitely my number 1 pick for flex support in this Melee Grand Finals. I can't really put anyone else here. Even though Izayaki and Gangnam Jin have had good weekends, they just not been on the level that Fielder has been on. And this is going to be a running theme. So now we move on to our off tank. Bottom off tank is Elsa. Yes, Chengdu Hunters didn't do great, so Elsa didn't really stand out in any way, and that's kind of what makes him suffer here. Gargoyle had some good plays. Again, he's in 3rd though, because there was no clutch potential from Gargoyle really. Yes, there was the 4K bomb that I was on about earlier, but it was set up by Slime, not set up by Gargoyle, so it was great team play. And it would never have got the value if Slime had not come back with that shield bash to shield bash Fate, and who knows what would have happened from there. So Gargoyle has been good, don't get me wrong, he's actually been great, but I don't think he's lived up to our next pick, which is Void, because Void, it's not been the best season so far for Void, but he's looked consistent, especially in these previous 2 weeks, and especially this week. He's looked back to the much more consistently great Void that we expected coming into the season, and what we saw last season. Not quite the clutch Void, I wouldn't say, that we've seen in previous times, but he's getting back to his best, and I think he's outdone Gargoyle this weekend, especially in that Shanghai, Florida 2nd match, where Shanghai rolled Florida pretty much. And then our top one, yes, is Hanbin, because it's just so clutch what Dallas Fuel are doing right now. I can't argue against not putting these guys top. And I mean, I can make arguments against Jexa, and I can make arguments in one of the other slots we're going to be talking about in a minute, but Hanbin, he's just better than the rest this weekend. He really, really is. Void is the only one, in my opinion, that was close to him, but again, Hanbin was just better. He was getting more value from what he was playing, and I think that's a massive thing for Dallas. Hanbin, he's not perhaps the most clutch of off tanks at the moment, but he's getting the job done. And another problem, and that's something I have to beat down on Gargoyle with, there was a weird grav against Shanghai, a mighty weird grav in that first Shanghai match, and that's why again he gets put down further away from these guys. Both Void and Hanbin have consistent, but Hanbin has been consistently better than Void this weekend, so that's why he gets the spot. Then we move on to our main tank. Gaga is going to again prop up with number 4 spot. Gaga's a good main tank, but it's just not... He can't compete with the way in which the other main tanks have stepped up in this tournament. It's the running theme for Chengdu. They reached their peak in some respects. They reached their peak and couldn't go any further. And that's just kind of where we're at with Chengdu right now. There's some improvements needed, but they will learn from this experience. In third, we have OG. Maybe a little low, but I have to take into account that Fate is a great main tank and will be getting second place. OG really stepped up, but Florida Mayhem ran out of gas against the Shanghai Dragons, and it ended up in a pretty nasty pasting 3-0. Fate was able to keep up and outdo OG at times. OG has had a great run in this main melee. He was fantastic the previous week to get to Hawaii, and OG is still doing fantastically. But again, this is where we start to separate the men from the boys in some respects. And the definite man in the main tank spot at the moment is Fearless, who will be taking this spot. My goodness me. Oh, who can knock Fearless off of the main tank spot right now? Because there are not a lot of people that are going to be able to do it. Fearless is playing insanely. Absolutely insanely. I think this is a better Fearless than we saw at Shanghai Dragons. He's more consistent. He just seems better. I did not think Fearless on the Winston and the Rhine could get better than what we saw at the Shanghai Dragons. But here we are, and he is. And my goodness me, he is opening so much opportunities, or so many opportunities, for the Dallas Fuel to get picks. It is probably why their DPS are doing so well. Because, again, you possibly wouldn't be expecting Dallas Fuel to do so well with a lack of hit scan. Hello, Pine. Yes, we know. That's an interesting video, that one. But with the lack of long-range DPS, you wouldn't expect Dallas to do so well, but I think they're doing so well because of how good Fearless is at creating space, and just, at times, putting this team on his back. At times, just sheer putting this team on his back. Fearless has been insane, and the highlight player of this May Melee, in my opinion. I'm going to just put that out there. And he's definitely got to be in line currently as one of the favourites for MVP, even though it's very, very early days. He'd be my MVP of the May Melee, put it that way. Now we move on to our DPS though. This is where it gets a little sticky, because again, we've seen multiple DPS for Chengdu Hunters, whereas we've seen no change pretty much for the other three. So I'm going to name 5 for the more flex DPS spot, simply because the Chengdu Hunters are going to put Leave and Jinmu here. Jinmu was okay. I'm not going to lie, Jinmu was okay, but he is going to take this 5th spot. He was not as good as Leave. And very often when Jinmu was subbed out, Jimmy came in and played long range hit scan. And Jinmu and Leave would play more of a Tracer and then a Echo or a Farah or something like that. So that's kind of the way Chengdu Hunters were working, and then Leave would move over to something like the Ash if needed. And then when Jimmy comes in, Leave literally plays the Tracer. Simple as that. And I think Leave was actually pretty darn good. I have to put him ahead of Jinmu, but I put Leave in this spot because he was playing the Tracer a lot. So I think Leave was actually much better than Jinmu. Jimmy, we'll talk about in a minute because he's the hit scan spot. Jinmu, he's okay, but he's not competing with the quality of DPS he was up against at the end of the day. That's where we're at with that. Again, a very similar case for the whole of Chengdu Hunters. If I was to say anyone that probably looked the best, it would have been Leave, and that's why he gets it over Jinmu. I think arguably Leave was the best player this weekend, but that's not saying much. He did put this team on his back at times, dragged them through fights, made things closer than perhaps they originally would have been, but it doesn't escape the fact that Chengdu were dumped out, didn't win a match, and looked really rough. And that's on the team in some respects. It's just not ready to compete with the big boys right now. Then in the 3rd spot, I'm putting Yaki. Yaki has been great. Honestly, this spot is stacked. So even coming 3rd in this spot is not a shameful thing by any means. But Yaki gets 3rd spot simply because the other two were so great. Not gonna lie, Yaki was fantastic on the Echo, on the Tracer, etc. He was really clutch at times. Just above Yaki, I'm putting Fletter. Fletter, he's not quite there in terms of being the best flex DPS right now, I wouldn't say. Although he's definitely in contention. Him and Yaki were quite close, although Fletter got a slight bit more value in those matches against Florida, and that's why I've given him the edge here. I think Fletter's trace is really, really good. Fletter is obviously insane at the Echo, we already knew that. Fletter is just fantastic all around. But I am giving the spot to Doha. And the reason for that is, again, the flexibility of Doha to get so much value. Yes, we saw Sparkle on the Echo, but we saw Doha on the Sombra. My goodness me, he looked good. His EMPs were phenomenal. Honestly. Doha has really stepped up. In a way, I didn't expect him to. In some respects for the Dallas Field this season, he looked okay last season on the Dallas Field. And it tells you that, my goodness me, when you get some good players around a decently good player, they can be insane. And that's what Doha is proving right now. He was around bad players last season and was good. This season he's around great players and Doha is popping off big time. And that's why I want to give him this spot, especially for this week. He really did well for Dallas Fuel, and that Sombra pick really, really worked at times. Then we move on to our last spot though. This is harsh. And tough, because all of these have had really good moments this weekend. Jimmy's going to get the 4th spot because, well, not as clutch as the others here, not going to lie. Jimmy was good, had really good moments, especially against, I'm trying to think of which team it was now. I'm trying to think of Dallas. I believe it's Dallas. On Blizzard World. That's what I'm thinking of. Jimmy had a really good play. BQB is 3rd. The reason BQB is 3rd is because, okay, the Florida Mayhem got a win against Chengdu. This is where BQB could outdo people like Jimmy and Leave at times. But then as soon as BQB goes up against Lip of the Shanghai Dragons, which is the other 2 matches for Florida Mayhem this weekend, he lost out heavily. He was outplayed a lot of the time by Lip from the Shanghai Dragons, and it shows you a quite evident tier list of quality in terms of these Hitscan DPS right now, and BQB is that step below the likes of Lip. Lip kind of ascended this weekend and really shut down BQB at times, and therefore BQB kind of suffers for that. And he'll just have to keep grinding, keep getting up there, and I'm sure he'll be able to contest Lip at some point. Second, we have Sparkle. Sparkle, again, is a tough one. The reason I put Sparkle in this one and not in the the flex DPS is because Sparkle played Soldier 76 and Tracer quite a bit. His Soldier 76 was clutch, not gonna lie. It's not the most obvious of picks. We see a lot of McCree and Ash, but because Sparkle has some experience in Soldier 76, he picked it. There's a Dallas run with it, and it was able to pressure out Fletter's Echo very well. And yeah, it may not kill the Echo, but it pressures the Echo out of the air, which then means that when the dive goes in, which is obviously what primarily Dallas like to play, or the push goes in with the Reinhardt, then the Echo can tend to be in damageable distance. So as long as you pressure the Echo out of the air, she's going to be so much less effective, even if you don't kill her. And that's the impact that Sparkle was having on the Soldier 76, even if he wasn't getting a massive amount of kills. Sometimes in Overwatch it's not necessarily killing, it's about forcing the reposition, and that's what Sparkle's Soldier 76 was doing. His Tracer was insane, and his Echo was darn good as well. So I think he deserves a 2nd spot, but I have to give the 1st spot to Lip, because Lip, I think, was the best Hitscan DPS this weekend, despite not being in the team that won the overall tournament. I think Lip did a fantastic job of shutting down BQB, was a massive part of why Shanghai Dragons really did pummel the Florida Mayhem in the end. And he had some clutch moments against the Dallas Fuel in both games, although they did lose both of them in the end. And yeah, it's tough on Lip. I think he was fantastic, but his team were limited by fantastic play from the Dallas Fuel in the end. I think definitely we can say that the Shanghai Dragons, even though they didn't take part against the Chengdu Hunters, I would have predicted the Shanghai Dragons to beat Chengdu Hunters if they played them. But even though the Shanghai Dragons didn't play them, I think we can definitely say that they were the second best. They didn't cheat their way or anything to a grand final against Dallas Fuel. They were just beaten by the better mechanical team. I think Dallas outdid them on the main tank, on the off tank, on the supports at times as well, especially the flex support. Doha got crazy value, and then that very clever pick by Sparkle to pressure out Fleta was really clever on the Soldier 76, I'm not gonna lie. And then that's not necessarily Lip's fault if your team is just kind of not outplayed, but, well, I suppose outplayed in some respects, but just lacking a little bit on the day to see it through against Dallas. So, my team of the week is Lige Gon, Fielder, Hanbin, Fearless, Doha, and Lip. Again, it is very Dallas orientated, although you would kind of expect that from your main melee champions. I would have thought it is obviously dominated by the two teams that actually got to the finals, but that's why I wanted to do it in this format, because I think everyone deserves recognition, because if you got to this point, you were a part of the Final Four, then you deserve recognition, because no one was atrocious. That's one thing I will say. No one was atrociously bad. It's just some people were better than others. And that's what makes that's what gets you into Team of the Week at the end of the day. If you like this sort of format, I will do it probably for every tournament, grand finals, because I think this little tier list way of doing things is pretty neat. And because there's so little in terms of player pool, I think it could be really interesting to do. But obviously let me know what you think of this format in the video description as ever. Video description, you can't type in a video description. What am I talking about? Video comments. Comments section. We'll get there in the end, and leave a like, I don't know, do things like that. Turn on notifications for subscriptions so you don't miss a video. Yeah, things like that. I turned into a proper YouTuber now where I keep plugging myself. Anyway, so socials are linked in the video description for Illusion Gaming and myself as ever. Give the follows to the relevant Twitters and Twitches and join the Discords, etc. It's all a lot of fun to talk about the Overwatch League, etc. as well in those servers. I will be back for another video, obviously very, very, very soon in the lead up to our June joust as well. We have some new power rankings, I think. I think it's time for some new power rankings. It's about time. But it's been a super interesting May Melee. That's where we put the bookend on the May Melee. First quarter of the season is done. Time to move on to the next quarter. Well done to the Dallas Fuel for winning the May Melee as well. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.